Previously on Manzikert. Unknown Patriarch Valentinos formed an alliance to stabilize the political situation in Constantinople. Gregorios' return to Constantinople from the east stirred up tensions in the city. At the same time, a huge army of the Holy Roman Empire, led by Pagani and Emperor Henry V, invaded Roman territory in Italy. Unknown Valentinos hatched a plan to consolidate their power, supporting Gregorios' huge military expedition into Italy. Gregorios eviscerated the imperial army at the Battle of Bari, killing Emperor Henry V and reconquering much of southern Italy. Pagani, alongside the Knights of Adana and Anti-Pope Sylvester, fled to the city of Rome. Now, Gregorios and the Roman army have begun their march on Rome. In early spring 1119, the Roman army set up camp outside the city of Rome. Before long, the entire city was surrounded. All exits were blocked off by Gregorios' soldiers. Pagani, alongside hundreds of Adana and German knights, as well as more than 1,000 soldiers, garrisoned the city. They were ill-equipped for a siege. Anti-Pope Sylvester had blown through much of the city's food in the past few months, as he was generously celebrating and donating the food to the common people of Rome, never expecting that the city would come under siege. Poverty and despair overtook the people of the city as Pagani hoarded the remaining food for his soldiers. Gregorios was not content to let the city starve out. Ever since he was young, he had dreamed of this moment. He had loved to draw up siege engines and plan out assaults in his free time as a youth, and now he planned on doing just that. Gregorios ordered his men to begin constructing a massive amount of siege towers and ladders outside the Porta Tiburtina, one of the gates to the city. The message to Pagani was clear. A massive assault was coming for the Porta Tiburtina. Pagani positioned most of his troops on the walls surrounding the gate, expecting an imminent attack. But this was all a ruse. Gregorios, Bryennios, and Manuel had come up with a different plan. The plan was for Bryennios to lead a diversionary attack on the Porta Tiburtina with a massive force of thousands of men. Under the cover of night, Manuel and the best soldiers of the Roman army would then scale the Porta Latina and open the gate for Gregorios and another portion of the army. Before the assault began, Gregorios had Gelasius bless the Roman army, much to the ire of Bryennios and Manuel. Manuel refused to hear Gelasius' blessing, proclaiming that he was the sword of the Patriarch, and only the blessing of Patriarch Valentinos would give him God's favor. That night, the attack began, with Bryennios and his men charging towards the Porta Tiburtina. At the same time, Manuel scaled the Porta Latina, easily overcoming the defenders. He then opened the gates for Gregorios and several thousand of his men to storm the city. Within a matter of hours, the Roman army swarmed the streets of the city, securing control over most of Rome. Realizing they had been defeated, the remaining German soldiers in the city surrendered. Unwilling to give up, Pagani and several dozen Adana knights made a last stand on the walls of Rome, fighting to the last man. Soon after Pagani's death, Manuel and his soldiers broke into the Lateran Palace, mercilessly killing everyone in the building, including Anti-Pope Sylvester. By the end of the day, all resistance had crumbled. Emperor Gregorios and his Roman army now controlled Rome. The Romans celebrated across the city. Gregorios happily declared to Wilfred that Alfric had been avenged, and a death blow had been struck against the Knights of Adana. Gregorios then gave a speech to the Varangian guards, reminding them of their past adventures in the east, promising that next they would return to the Ghaznavid Empire to avenge Isaac and the fallen brothers-in-arms. The next day, Pope Gelasius held Mass in Rome for the first time, with Gregorios in attendance. In front of the people of Rome, Gelasius declared that Gregorios had been sent by God to bring the Roman Empire to greatness. The recent victories had made Gregorios overconfident. He no longer sought to hide his growing alliance with Pope Gelasius, making it clear that Gregorios favored Gelasius more than the Orthodox Church back home. Gregorios even ordered some of the Varangians to serve as the Pope's bodyguards. This angered Manuel, who reported the situation back to Patriarch Valentinos in Constantinople. Valentinos was furious to hear that the Roman Emperor was once again favoring the Pope and the Catholic Church. He gave a speech to a large crowd in Constantinople, denouncing Gregorios and inciting a riot. For 3 days, religious violence engulfed Constantinople, with the city's Catholic and Orthodox populations once again engaged in open conflict. The city guard was overwhelmed. David, the captain of the city guard, was still taking care of Gregorios' son, Alfracos, just as Gregorios had asked of him. Out of an abundance of caution, David took Alfracos outside the walls of Constantinople. They now lived near the site where Gregorios and Alfred used to train. Valentinos and Anna soon came to an agreement in order to resolve the situation. Anna agreed to endorse the Patriarch's independence from the Pope. She wrote a letter to Gregorios, urging him to immediately return to Constantinople to deal with the crisis. She also sent another letter to Manuel, informing him of the deal between her and the Patriarch. Gregorios was initially dismissive of Anna's letter. He met with Manuel, who Gregorios believed could influence the Patriarch. Gregorios asked Manuel to urge the Patriarch to calm down and at least wait until the war in Italy was finished. But Gregorios' criticism towards the Patriarch soon got out of hand. Gregorios began angrily ranting about Valentinos to Manuel. In his rage, Gregorios insulted and cursed the Patriarch's name multiple times. Manuel was well aware of the Emperor's reputation for sadism whenever Gregorios was angry. After hearing Gregorios' angry tirade, Manuel worried about what was going to happen to the Patriarch. Gregorios then declared that he planned to have Gelasius and Valentinos resolve their differences through negotiations. He asked Manuel to convince Valentinos to come to the negotiating table. Manuel reluctantly conceded, promising to Gregorios that he would write to the Patriarch. Gregorios thanked Manuel, saying he always knew that he could count on him. Manuel then asked Gregorios if he wanted to come to dinner with Brienios and several other officers from the army, saying that they wanted to celebrate with Gregorios ahead of his upcoming birthday, in case they were on the march again in the next few days. Gregorios was delighted, thanking Manuel for being so thoughtful. Gregorios and Manuel then headed towards the dinner. When they arrived at the dinner, Gregorios found that Brienios and the officers had already finished their food and were stuffed. Manuel, Brienios, and the other Orthodox officers of the army stabbed Gregorios more than a dozen times, with some of the officers chanting Lucas and Valentinos as they murdered the emperor. Not long after, one of Valentinos' priests informed Anna that the assassination of Gregorios had gone just as they had planned. Anna then began giving out orders to prepare for Gregorios' funeral and for her own coronation as empress. But suddenly, a mass of Orthodox soldiers stormed the imperial palace. Valentinos had let them in. The Orthodox soldiers overwhelmed the Norman guards, taking Anna into custody. Valentinos then began an oration at the imperial court, claiming that he had uncovered evidence that Anna had ordered Gregorios' assassination in order to seize power for herself. He further claimed that Anna was working with Pope Gelasius to overthrow Gregorios' government and destroy the Orthodox Church. Throughout the next week, Valentinos' supporters rampaged through Constantinople, purging all of Anna's allies, and murdering every Catholic senator in the city. Valentinos and the Senate then convened. The surviving members of the Senate, all of whom were ardent supporters of Valentinos, voted to make the Patriarch the regent of Gregorios' son, Alfracos. All power would now rest in Valentinos' hands until Alfracos came of age. Valentinos ordered his men to bring Alfracos back to Constantinople, so that he could serve as the face of Valentinos' new regime. Hundreds of Valentinos' soldiers then marched to David's villa right outside Constantinople, where they knew David was keeping Alfracos. David and the remnants of Constantinople's city guard garrisoned the villa. When David saw the Orthodox army approaching the villa, he summoned his last surviving son, the youngest brother of Gregorios' friend Isaac, who was named Zachary. David charged Zachary with taking care of Alfracos. He advised Zachary to find Pope Gelasius or the Varangian guards in Italy. They would protect Alfracos. Several of David's best men would serve as Zachary's bodyguards. David then took the remainder of the city guard and defended the villa against the invading Orthodox army, fighting to the last man. Their sacrifice bought Zachary and Alfracos enough time to escape the outer reaches of Constantinople.